Are you going to change this?
No, we've already, it was that like that. It was a set.
Oh, I
You've got to
see.
watch the paint on.
Wow. Where is the Mr. Senior? I would like
You
to
want
see
a
Mr.
word
Senior.
with? Yes. As I say, if you go up the stairs
Yes.
here, turn right. His office is to the far end of the
Oh, what is the room
corridor,
number?
and the room number is 103.
103. Thank you very much. Could you take care of those equipment, please? Hello.
Come this way.
Oh. Are you came to?
Yes, I am. Yeah, how do you
My name is Jim. How do you do?
Hello. Julian's end office.
You know.
Through there.
Okay.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
You too. How are you? Nice to meet you. Please sit down. John. John. Brazil. Brazil. Okay? Here's what we've got to do with Brazil. We've got to produce a blood elevator trailer for Brazil. All right? Now, the words of the blood elevator trailer for Brazil.
Like some coffee?
Yes, please.
I've got,
Thank you.
and there's only one
Okay,
tiny,
fine.
there's only one tiny accent that they use in Brazil that you might not know. You know the C with a little tail on it, okay? And above an A, a little wave. No, not a horizontal, no, an actual curved wave. It's horizontal rather than vertical. Can you, that's above an A. That's right. So, in other words, if we have to make the trailer here for Brazil, which we're going to have to do, we have to get that set correctly for National Screen to Film. Okay. I'll get it up to you sometime today by car. Okay? All right, John, thanks. That's approved. That ad is approved. No, that ad is approved. You go ahead, list the theaters. It all looks fine. Yeah, John is down now. John Fowler is down now, actually checking the theaters to make sure we list the correct theaters. All right? Thanks, John. Take care, mate. Bye. Jim.
Oh.
Hi. I'm
Jim.
sorry that I'm
That's all
in the
right.
middle
It's all right.
of this nonsense.
Let me give you my name card for your convenience.
All right, hold on. You want convenience?
Okay. Oh, you have a lot of...
Warner Brothers believe I'm going to be with them a long time. I have so many business cards.
Okay. Thank
It's
you.
lovely.
May I call you Julian?
Please call me Julian. Please call me Julian.
Well, long time to come.
I'm
I mean,
pleased.
a long way to come here.
I welcome you. I welcome you. I'm very,
Well.
I'm very pleased. It's
Well,
it's interesting. It's
Yes,
interesting that
yes.
you come, because I was looking today or the other day at some excellent Japanese television commercials.
oh,
Excellent commercials,
Mhm.
because first of all, technically they're beautiful to look at. Beautiful to look at. The second thing that I find interesting is the number of occasions you use English, both English words,
Right.
for products, name products,
yes.
and also show Westerners.
Right.
I mean, amazing for me for Japan. So, I want to show you very quickly
Yeah.
a 5-second TV spot.
Mhm.
Now you say, what can you do in 5 seconds on television?
Okay.
I want to show you just what Stanley cut, what Kubrick cut for us, on a 5-second television commercial,
Mhm.
which is very interesting. Very,
Yeah.
very interesting. Very interesting, because what it does, Jim, is this. It tends to show you, when an audience is sitting watching, that one image,
Yes.
all right?
Over here.
All right, can you film that? It's very interesting. That one image.
The Shining, Certificate X.
Simple. 5 seconds, right? And you are reinforcing that message.
Right, right.
That
right.
one simple element in the film. It's done so beautifully by so many Japanese commercial directors. I've seen I say, a lot of television commercials for Japan.
Right.
There's a wonderful one that they do with children and sticking plaster. Do you know that there's a group of Japanese children swimming, some with here, some of them over there, and it's tiny children. They jump in a swimming pool and swim. They come out. I don't understand a word of Japanese except oshimashi. That's all I understand. But looking at the television commercial, you know exactly what they're selling, because they have a great tradition of using the visual. Films don't need to talk at you. You see them. It's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful way of working. Really wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Anyway, we've
Anyway,
got some coffee. We're making some coffee.
yes, and I'll say that it seems to be impossible. So we try to get him, to look for him
Yes.
and coming to the studio,
Right.
and I'm going to try
Through
to.
there with the cameras,
Okay.
and then walk into where Vivian is, where she is working.
That's exactly what I want to do. So I want to ask to somebody who are working there, and
I want to show you something. You read English, obviously.
yes, a little
Try
bit.
and tell me, what language was that? That. I mean,
Cowan. Are we going outside?
yes,
Okay.
yes. These, Jim, are just the offices for
Yeah.
Steven Spielberg has an office down there. Gary Cooper, Star Wars people, because Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back was made here. Let's see, so they have their offices here. The stages, the shooting stages, are all set back to the dressing rooms and everything. So let's see if we can find Stanley there. I will check.
Oh, this is the old studio for the.
Oh, yeah, this is
that movie.
Yeah, there are 5, 6, 7, 8 stages now, all set aside for film. As I say, we had Spielberg here with the film he was making, and the new Star Wars, the next Star Wars comes back now in May. They come back again. Yeah.
The people said that the glass. One glass in the door,
Yes.
the elevator door, in the shining. That glass, true. The real glass.
Look,
Is it?
it was built, Jim. This was the stage where the whole of the Shining set was built.
Yes.
In this stage.
In this stage.
You can see it's a new building. That is because at the end of, we were still 1 week from finishing shooting.
Yes.
It caught fire one night and burned down the whole place.
Oh.
But the whole thing was shot here on that stage. The big hall, the hotel, is a new film. I think it's Piers Haggard, an English director, is bringing a new film in here now. But it's a beautiful stage, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful stage, and it burnt to the ground. It literally caught fire one night and burnt to the ground.
Right after you shoot.
Well, there was still a week to go. They had to rebuild in small stages, small sections of the film. But what is interesting is that the huge halls, Stanley Kubrick has a theory.
Yes.
And it says like this. You don't need CinemaScope. You don't need a cast of thousands. If you have a good set designer and cameramen, camera crew that are good,
Right.
it seems to me that you can shoot straight 166 flat, not CinemaScope, not widescreen, just flat 35mm film. When you look at the Shining, you'll see that the whole hotel
Yes.
was built inside this one stage.
Oh, it's all right.
Everything was built inside this one stage.
Oh.
Now, when you see the film, you will see what I mean. And the exterior was built on the back.
Oh.
The snow, those huge piles of snow, is salt, industrial salt. So you can still do it. It's trickery and it's fooling. But sometimes I think directors get carried away about location shooting.
Right.
If we have something at the Niagara Falls, of course you must build you can't build the Niagara Falls, you must go there.
Right.
But if you'd taken this film to Colorado in the snow in winter to try and shoot this film, imagine the problems of taking a unit of 150 people up where there's 15 feet of snow. The first day you walk across the snow, the footprints mean you cannot shoot there any longer, right? I mean, you know the problems. Any filmmaker understands that. Stanley decided to control things. You're able to control things within a studio set, within a set.
I see. Well, when did you say this burned? Right after he took the whole film, so...
No. He still had about 3 weeks' work with Shelley Duvall to shoot. When it caught fire in the middle of the night, what was dangerous was that Shelley Duvall and Jack Nicholson, their dressing rooms are just above here in a corridor in the same building.
Yes.
It caught fire mysteriously. Nobody knows why, nobody knows how. I believe that it was an electrical fault and, you know, the soundproofing in the studio, because same is true in Japan, of course, but in most countries now, so good are the microphones, so good is the sound equipment, that you shoot you shoot sync dialogue sound everywhere you go.
Yes.
Which means that when you're shooting sync sound in here, there are trucks passing, there are people passing. The soundproofing is material that can burn. And that's what I think happened, I think. But I'll tell you what we can move up to, that's right, this is cutting room up there. And see,
まだ突然簡単な感じあるんですよね。さっき部屋の中に歩いてるからもう全く狂ってますから。
Are those real ones?
Does it look real, Jim? Does it look real? It looks real. Yes. There's one. That's a wonderful. It's one only in the film studio you have that. I mean, it's just so beautiful. Cool. The Hawk Films cutting room is here. They're building new stages now. Do you people want to go up the stairs or in the elevator? There's an elevator which might be easier for them. It means everybody can come. You want to go up the stairs? Well, they don't have... Oh, okay. As you wish.
これで大丈夫ですよ。大丈夫。
This location here was also used in the film. You see the placards? This was the kitchen in the hotel. Do you remember when she is being shown around the kitchens, right? And he says, come and show. They walked, that with a big fire exit painted on it, and they walked straight through here into the kitchens. This was the location where they used.
It's not like...
This is... If I turn on the lights, would that be a problem for your people?
No.
It doesn't matter, because nothing works.
井上さん、ここがね、このホールがね、シャイニングの台所だったと。これが。なるほど。これ動画のちょっとか。ね、ちょっと待ってね。変えてもいい。
Does he want us to walk up again? I think I'm trying to say, we were talking and saying that this is, right, this is where they shot the kitchens for The Shining here. Shelley Duvall, all this was built, the kitchens were built through here.
Yes, I remember that scene.
Okay, and
Shelley Duvall,
she came running through here. If you look at the film, I'm sure the boys will show you a clip of the film. This is the point at which she ran through into the kitchens.
Yes. こっちに入ってったんです。
Well, you can't go through there. It's now locked because it's the storeroom. It's where With a cutting. Right, exactly.
All right.
Okay. Let's see if there's any cutting room. Shall we go in? Please. Thank you.
Hello there.
Harry.
You don't worry. Labs. Oh, is it far from here?
It's about 15 miles, yes. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, forgive me. Martin, Martin is Jun'ichi Yaoi. Jim, please come to Jim. Japanese television. Martin is one of the editors working on... This is the whole shiny cutting room. It was all cut here, and he's now working on, I don't know, French...
Hundreds of things.
Hundreds of things, but French TV spots. The guys are looking for Stanley. He's traveling.
Yeah.
He's going to be calling me at some point. Yes. So he's going to be calling me here. At some point, you know what I'd like to do, Martin? You know the scene... Stanley loves dogs.
Oh, okay.
Cool. You want to walk in on your own?
Yeah, I will do it. Okay.
All right, let me just yell, Vivian! I just don't want the dogs. I don't want the dogs to attack you.
Yeah.
Because they'll come here. Come on. Just 1 second, Jim. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Come on.
No. Hello.
I was doing a movie, and
Hello. My name is Vivian Kubrick.
That's right.
Nice to meet you.
How
My
do you
name is
do?
Jun'ichi Yaoi. Came from Japan. Well, what are you doing now?
Well, at the moment, Paris TV wants 4.5 minutes for the news,
Oh,
for
I
the news
see.
program. So
I've
I'm
seen
just
that.
taking sections because they just want sections from the documentary that don't appear in the
I
documentary.
see. Yeah, I've seen that documentary, whole documentary, which you take.
You have?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is wonderful, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
excellent.
you very much. Well, the thing that I'm just trying to
Yes.
do now is that it's very difficult to sort of,
Mhm.
choose anything interesting after you've sort of been through it a million times. I mean, in the documentary, these are all the shots that appear in the documentary.
Yeah.
And, when I chose them, it took me about 8 months to choose them.
Mhm.
I mean, I've taken them all down now because, I've been packing most of the things away. But all the footage which is,
What is the original? 16 millimeter or 35?
yeah, it's just
16.
these are the interviews, but each 10-minute roll of film, well, these are 20-minute rolls.
I see.
You just put in here. They were originally all up there, but we've taken them down. But I chose, there was masters of selections. These were all the shots.
See?
You see, look, I'll show you. Can you focus in this color? Oh! These are all the shots that I chose. Now, each one of
Yeah.
these can be either 5 or, sort of, 30 seconds long. All the times are there. And what I did was that, let's say I decided through the millions of selections which I did, that these were the cards that I wanted to use. Each scene, has a title,
That
right?
is
Like
very
Danny
convenient.
moodying up,
Right, right.
getting ready for the...
I see.
And then I would go over here. Is there enough light?
Yes. Is this the first time you took your documentary about Kubrick?
Yeah, well, actually, it was the first film I've ever
Oh,
done.
is that right?
But you know, and what I do is that.
It was very, very interesting. Right?
Yeah.
Don't mind.
Well, what I used to do is that, let's say you would try and find an order for this
Right.
thing. Right? Right, you get them all up here.
Uh-huh.
And then literally, once you've got them all up on the wall, you just sort of, I mean, this was my basic idea, that I would just put it sort of randomly together, not necessarily like most documentaries on
Very
films.
good idea. Terrific.
Yeah, because
Yes.
most documentaries on films are like an army of technicians come along to Stanley Kubrick, and you know, they see him lighting here, and he's directing the actors, and you know, the audience
Right.
don't get a chance to really sort of make it up
Right,
for themselves.
right.
That's why my documentary has no commentary either. I mean, you just have to sort of infer from what you see.
I see.
Yeah, so. But that's basically how I did the sort of main
I
selection.
see.
And then what I used to do is then cut it on video. Most of the machines have been put away now because obviously I finished that stage a long time ago. But I used to cut it on video, and then so that you wouldn't mess up the film.
Yes,
Because,
yes.
you know, when you've got a lot of footage, you know, and it could be a million ways, you
Right.
know, if you don't sort of try at least a million ways before you actually get to the film ends up being single frames all the way
Right.
through,
Yes,
you know.
you're right.
It's getting very different. But at the moment, I'm just doing something that I find personally so boring that it's just out of the
No.
mindless. But
Well, we would like to interview you, if you don't mind, in here.
no.
And can we set up the whole light here?
Yeah, we could.
I think I need to.
I think we got
more
quartz
light
lights.
here.
I have quartz lights.
Okay.
In fact, if you want to see, I will now show you the Kubrick equipment room.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, so you come through here. This actually, through here,
Yes.
was actually where we shot the film. This is
Oh, I remember that.
this is
is
the
the
larder
storage
door.
store,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Yes.
This is the larder.
Uh-huh.
And this is where, like I say, this is where Shelley picks up the knife.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
because we shot most of the film in just what we could get of the studio, because you know there's very, very difficult to find any space in the studio. I
Right,
mean, the
right.
studio is not like, you know, in California.
Yeah.
So we just used every available space, and in fact, this whole room was the kitchen. And now this is the larder.
Oh. このシーンがあるんですよね、イネさん。Okay.
And
Oh, this is actual storage.
well, this is all our camera equipment.
I see.
And this is here I'll show you. This is the camera that I used.
Mm-hmm.
This here, the Atom. Beautiful camera.
Yes.
It's really sort of, it's really, I did start using a different camera.
Mhm.
And it was very, very difficult because, well, I'll show you what I had on it. So that I could do it by myself,
Yes.
I had my own sound equipment, which is, hang on, I'll show you, which I had strapped to the camera.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a hyper-directional mic.
Yeah.
And what you do is that, in fact, Garrett Brown,
Mhm.
the guy who invented the
Right,
Steadicam, he helped me set this all up
Oh, is
because
that right?
originally I had this thing with bits of string and sellotape, literally, because I couldn't figure out any other way of doing it. And in fact, the most simple solution, which the whole of the Steadicam is put together, is Velcro. And you just-
Oh, this is Harasho.
and
It's a good idea.
and then this is the
Yes.
microphone.
Yes.
Oh, I haven't got all the mic things, but they're here. This is my sound equipment chest,
Wow.
kept in great order.
Yes.
And this is, in fact, a music mic. It's hyper-directional, so wherever the camera is pointing, that's the sound that you get.
Right. Right.
And that would fit in there, like that. Obviously, I haven't set up everything. I'll take this off just in case it falls off, because there was another
I
strap.
see.
And then it just goes up here like that.
You did it by yourself.
Yeah,
All,
the whole
all
thing.
whole things.
And I
Ah.
loaded the film and the sound and everything. The sound is actually beautiful. I don't know whether you've seen this. I'm sure you have in
Yeah,
Japan.
I've
My
seen it.
God! But these
Oh.
they take about
lovely.
30 minutes on it. And in fact, this was developed for the CIA, which is why it's so good. Yeah, because it was for high quality, you know,
Right. right.
hidden tape recorders. So the importance of this, which is what the whole reason why I did it myself, is that you know, I mean, there's what, 4 of you guys standing over there, all climbing under tables and trying to get out of the way.
Right.
And obviously, if you have one person, it's less inhibiting, which is the, you know, one of the biggest problems, because, you know, people are just normal, and if a camera's pointed
Right,
at them, they
right.
start sort of, you know, fidgeting and feeling that everything they're doing is silly. So, but really, eventually, what happened is because I was so young, and
Yeah.
because I was Stanley's daughter, people sort of got to the point where they sort of didn't quite believe they'd ever really see it. You
Right,
know, I mean,
right.
it's like David Hockney on
Uh-huh.
Bigger Splash. You know, he said that the reason why he became so candid is because he never really quite believed he would ever see it. And so, you know, getting things like, you know, Shelley and Stanley fighting
Yeah.
and things like that, there was a point where people just sort of, you know, they sort of ignored me, basically. I mean, obviously, sometimes they would turn around and go, look, go away, you know, because they knew you were filming them. But it's
Oh, yeah.
essential, I think, in documentary shooting to do it yourself. And I think certainly this setup worked, you know, I mean, I think the sound is as good as anything any crew would ever
I
get.
see. Now I know that the documentary was super excellent. You know. Yeah.
So that's, and then all of this is just my father's crew. This is the famous 107, 1.7 lenses.
What is it?
This is
Lens.
the lenses
Oh.
that we used on Barry Lyndon for the cameras.
Yes. Yes.
These were the ones developed for NASA. You see how big they are? These were developed by NASA. God, they weigh a ton. And the reason why they're so big is because they're used for maximum intake of light. They have a 0.7 of f-stop on this. And these, in fact, were developed for space photography. And that's why they're so ridiculously big.
Wow.
So,
Very heavy.
yeah. And actually, if you want to, you come over here.
Okay.
This, this is
Yes.
Shelley Duvall's wardrobe.
Oh,
in here.
yes.
This is her dress she wears when
Right.
she goes to Jack and says to him, "What are you doing, honey?" He says, "Get the hell out of here." And all the rest of her junk. This is just piled with clothes in here.
Yeah.
And this is what I used to carry my camera around in here. If you come around here. This is a child's pram. Excellent for carrying cameras.
Oh.
Much better than any grip.
Yes.
And this is in fact my cat's pillow.
Uh-huh.
And then I used to just push everything around in this thing.
Oh.
So, so that's how I used to make it. Because otherwise, you know, I mean, all over the studio, you've
Right.
been walking around, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah, you see there's just masses of ground to cover. But anyway, so I'll leave that. Put that
Very
one in.
interesting.
You can also show something else if you want.
Yeah.
In here
Yes.
is all the, in here is all the literature on all his films. There's the old programs to Barry Lyndon,
Yes.
you know,
Right.
all these things. There's photographs by the million. I mean, I know. There's original artwork. There's all sorts of things here, but best of all, sorry, you didn't make it down the hall.
Barry Lyndon.
Yeah.
And
And here, this is the fake.
wow.
The beautiful costume.
Beautiful.
And Barry Lyndon,
Barry
they're all,
Lyndon.
they're all just sitting in a pile. This is Maurice's
Yes.
morning gown.
Oh, beautiful.
These were all made by Milena and Ulla Britt. They all made all these. But you know, the things that's so sad is that you make all these things for films, and then they end up in, you know, crappy trunks.
Right.
You know, I mean, this took somebody a long time to make it. But there's no, I mean, this like, you know, we made 30 doors for Jack to axe through. So, you know,
I see.
everything eventually. But there's all the, let's say, all the sort of, well, like the clapperboard, lampshades and junk. This actually, I don't know, have you seen the film?
Yes, yes.
These originally, all these, this is a prime example of when you make things and they never come through. There was like months spent on these things to be made for the ballroom sequence, and then Stanley decided that they should all just be plain people and not sort of have mass all over you. But there's just, you know, masses and masses and masses of things. Here is, these are 2001.
2001. Oh.
These are all the color plates. Oh, what's this? This is, well, you can't possibly see it, but this is one of the plates they use for the back projection for all the ape scenes. And, oh, well, I mean, there's just millions of them in here. Can you see? No? But I mean, like, these are all the millions of back projection things.
Yes.
And, yeah, these are all the African landscapes. And then, yeah. And then these are, but you see, the thing is that most of the things, like, oh no, that's just junk. But you end up keeping, I mean, look, that was used in the film, that stays in the thing until it becomes out of date.
Yes.
Just that everything gets kept. And so, in fact, all of this is totally useless, but we keep it anyway, for some reason. Oop, watch it, you're gonna...
Very interesting. Very interesting.
And believe it or not, this is Barry Lyndon radio spots here. Oh. And this is the way they get kept, you see. In great condition. And, well, this is all older stuff. This is like Paths of Glory photographs down there and, you know, various junk. But that's basically what ended up to all those, you know, all those things. So, I can't really just think if I can think of somewhere else to show you. Well, I can show you Stanley's office.
Yes,
how about that? It's an incredibly boring office. I don't think people would believe how boring it is.
So I'll tell you what I'll do, Stan.
Oh, this is the normal shot.
This is Stanley's office. And as you can see, it's pretty disorderly. Let's see. I don't think there's anything particular. Yeah.
Nothing at all.
No. These are all his notes for the laboratories. That's, in fact, I think where he is today, because he's doing all the Spanish and South American prints and dubbing and everything. And then he just keeps them in here. And then this is the poor man's filing system, which is locked. But he has just back, well, you see, I mean, he just has so much paperwork. Junk. Then he has obviously all the things that get written about the film. Things just, I mean, it's quite haphazard. I mean, you don't always sort of end up finding the things that get printed about the film. But that's article. I think this is Belgium or something.
Do you have father's good picture?
Good picture, Stanley? Well, that was the one thing that was always lacking on the film. I mean, eventually we chose some, but they're not really. These are from the film, you know. These are not thick. In fact, a lot of the stills, because, you know, it's very difficult, because what eventually happens is it comes down to inefficiency. It was sort of forgotten to take photographs. And so what was done is that sections of my rushes, which were sort of like close-ups on Stanley and like that, were blown up onto 35 transparencies, and those were used as the promotional photographs of Stanley, because, you know, I mean, this is probably the total amount of photographs that were taken of
Okay.
Stanley on the film. But the stuff that I took of him was
Could I
honestly...
keep it?
What, these? Sure.
Yes, or these.
No, I mean, there's not.
To shoot the camera later.
Yeah. Well, there's copies all over
After
the
we-
place. Let me see.
After we go back to Japan, we can shoot these
Here, okay.
as
Yeah, these are pretty crappy, these
Oh, it
ones. I
is.
think they were over there because he didn't choose them.
is that right?
No, I don't think he's got these in the publicity thing. But,
Okay. Excuse me.
okay.
Okay.
時間も
Okay. Let's go back to the room. 45分ですね。
マイク向こうだよね。
マイク取ってこなきゃダメだよ。何人もだ。
ここでね、インタビュー。あ、そう。
Should I turn this off?
Could you explain about the scene? This
Well, the scene.
and okay.
Shall we shoot it?
All right.
Okay. Well, this actually is not the room in the end, but is there any sound? Is this optical? No.
Oh, I don't know.
All right. Well, this is just me. Well, what? Explain what is happening in the scene. Well, at the moment, Scatman is just showing Danny and Shelley the inside of the various food cupboards,
Yeah,
and
but
larders
it-
and things like that. It's basically so that by the end of the scene, you can somehow have Scatman make contact with Danny.
Right,
That's
right.
basically the main
But-
point of this whole thing.
This is a place where we saw.
Well, no, here, I'll show you. Well, I'll just make it go faster. Now this,
Yes.
I'll show you. This is the door of where we actually went in.
Right.
And let's get him in there. And there we are. Now, that is where I was showing you the sound
Yeah.
equipment.
Yeah.
And actually, this room, all of these rooms, the room we're standing in, have all been various stages of the film. I mean, in here, this was the art department.
Yes.
And this was one of the offices in the art department. And, I mean, obviously you can't swing the camera around, but the whole of this room was just masses of box of photographs of research
Right.
for, you know, the inside of what larders look like and for all the rooms that were used in the film. But this is the bit I was talking about. Just here, this is where Scatman makes contact with Danny. Obviously with no sound, it doesn't make very much sense at all. But anyway, so this is over.
Yeah.
And this is where, I mean, well, I'll keep it running, otherwise you won't see it. But back there, at the very back of the room, is where my cutting room is now.
Oh, I see.
So all of these rooms have served a sort of a four seasons purpose. They've all been used for every single thing. I mean, in the film, for the film, everything.
Okay.
But,
Cut. And この柱がね、さっきあった柱なんですね。これが。はい。そしたらね、もう一箇所ね。あ、これだこれだ。
これね、これはどこだっけ。
ちょっと待って。いいですか？
はい。
回ってる？
回ってるよ。
はい。このカットがね、あるんですよ。このカット。このカットがさっきのドアなんですよね、あのドアで。これフレーム入れたりなんて。はい。はい、いいですね。
Okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, I certainly shall. Hello?
Hi.
Stanley?
Yes.
Been looking for you. Can you talk now? Do you have a moment?
Well, now it's the time, yes.
Now's the time. Hold on a second. Let me pass you on to Mr. Yaoi, the producer, who's standing with me now.
Is he ready now?
Yes, he's ready. Just 1 second.
Hello, Mr. Kubrick.
How do you do?
How do you do, sir? My name is Jun'ichi Yaoi.
How do you do?
Can I ask you some questions?
Yes, of course.
Please. Well, why did you choose a horror story to your newest movie?
Well, first of all, let me apologize for not being able to talk to you in person.
No.
I am, as Julian probably explained to you, I'm running around
Yes.
to various laboratories and sound studios. And
Yes.
I'm actually calling it out from the telephone booth.
Yes, we understand your situation. Yes.
Why did I choose a horror story? You could ask me that question about every film I've made, and it would be difficult for me to answer. I read a lot, and obviously always looking for a film story. And it's a little bit like somebody saying, "Why did you fall in love with your wife?" Something happens when you read a story that you like. It suggests the possibilities of the film, and I thought that this plot was one of the cleverest of its genre, and one of the most interesting. And when I read it, I just wanted to make a film of it.
I see. What do you think of supernatural power?
You mean, what do I really think of it?
Yes.
Well, I don't know. I think that there have been so many interesting stories and reports of people who have had occult experiences. It's a little bit like when there was a famous astronomer who was talking about life in the universe, in other worlds in the universe, and he said, sometimes I think there is, and sometimes I think there isn't. He said, in either case, I find the idea quite staggering. And I think that I would be surprised in a way if there was, and I would be surprised if there wasn't.
Well, do you have such kind of ability and supernatural power?
Say that again?
Do you have the supernatural power ability of supernatural power?
No, I wish
by
I
yourself?
did.
People said that you must have, predicting the future and reading the minds of actors and getting image from another dimension.
Well, I wish I could say that I did have supernatural power. No, I think I just try to do the best that I can and hope that people like it.
Yeah. Well, what do you think of UFO, which is flying saucers, people said? Do you think, the alien people from another planet visiting our Earth?
Well, I've never really made up my mind. Again, it belongs to that category of stories that it's almost impossible to believe, and yet at the same time, some of the sightings are so extraordinary, and the people who have seen them seem so respectable and beyond, any suspicion that, one can only say that I would, I don't know.
Yeah.
I would like to believe it.
Well, Japanese people love your films, especially Space Travel 2001.
Yeah.
And but people are wondering that what is the meaning of last scene? The old man were, lying on a bed in a very old style house. And could you give us an answer?
I've tried to avoid doing this ever since the picture came out, because when you just say the ideas, they sound foolish, whereas if they're dramatized, one feels it. But I'll try. I mean, the idea was supposed to be that deliberately so inaccurate, because, one was suggesting that they had some idea of something that he might think was pretty, but weren't quite sure, just as we aren't quite sure what to do in zoos with animals to try to give them what we think is their natural, environment. And anyway, when they get finished with him, as happens in so many myths of all cultures in the world, he is transformed into some kind of super being and sent back to Earth, transformed and made, into some sort of Superman. And we have to only guess what happens when he goes back. It is a pattern of a great deal of mythology, and that was what we were trying to suggest.
I see. Could I ask you the same question about the Shining, the last scene of Shining? You showed the picture, and
did you have? I told Julian to ask you. Did you have any difficulty recognizing Jack Nicholson?
No, not me.
No.
No. We could find Jack Nicholson, but
you weren't sure what it was supposed to mean.
Right.
Well, it was supposed to suggest a kind of evil reincarnation cycle, where he is part of the hotel's history, just as in the men's room when he's talking to the former caretaker, ghost of the former caretaker, who says to him, you are the caretaker, you've always been the caretaker, I should know, I've always been here. One is merely suggesting some kind of, endless cycle of this evil reincarnation, and also, well, that's it. I mean, again, it's the sort of thing that I think is better left unexplained, but since you asked me, I'm trying to explain.
I see, okay. At the end of this interview, could you give to the Japanese audience about your message to the Japanese audience?
What do you mean?
Anything to the Japanese people, is there any message to them?
Well,
from you?
Just my best wishes, and I don't really understand your question.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Well, is there anything to say about the Shining?
Oh, I see what you mean. Well, no, I never like to say anything about my films, because I think that the pleasure that an audience receives in discovering things for themselves is a great deal of what one likes about good films. I know myself, I don't like to read what something is about or to be told before I see it, or what it means. I think the best thing is when an audience looks at a film and wonders whether something that they see is an accident, or whether the director or writer meant them to know it. I think that subtlety and allowing the audience to discover for themselves what it is the most important thing. That's why I've always tried to avoid interviews and explanations about the films. I think the film, should be able to speak for itself.
Yes. Well, I understand, quite understand. Thank you very much, Mr. Kubrick.
Well, is that all you want to talk about?
Yes, it was excellent. Thank you very much.
Again, I apologize for not being there. I hope my daughter is helping you.
Yes, yes. She is very good help. Well, thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
It's like a fad, It was just my friends and me were playing with a Ouija board. You know those things? And I was just playing around with it. And one of the rules is if you get a bad spirit or something like that, it keeps going to no on every single question that you say. Right. And I thought, oh, God, So I was just being silly, and there's this sort of little ritual you do where you take the glass and you pick it up and you sort of start doing that. And I was a bit scared. I don't know why, but anyway, and I picked it up, and it literally, and I'm not lying or anything like this. I'm sure this sounds utterly fantastic, but the glass just went like that.
Wow.
It just sort of exploded, and it just went like that, and just fell on the Ouija board, just in hundreds of pieces. And I was just, even the base of the glass had broken. Now, I think that a lot of cases, it's the power from you that makes those things happen. You know, where you start sort of, you know, just the fact that one can feel, you know, if somebody did that, you can feel it. You know, you can feel the energy coming from it. And probably, I should imagine, a lot of that has to do with the fact that one does get out a lot of energy.
Right.
And you're so hyped up because you're a little scared that it just, you know, the collection of energy that's flying around.
It often happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know the same case, you know, a lot of the same cases. And what else did you experience?
Well, I mean, the thing is that when you're a child, you get yourself so hyped up anyway, because I mean, I was always very frightened, because my parents used to go to parties when we lived in New York, and in New York, you know, the TV goes on until God knows what else. And I was about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old, and we had this big house in Long Island, and I used to just watch horror films all night. So, you know, I completely freaked myself out because I was so terrified. But, you know, there were times like that where I really, I mean, like, I'm sure a lot of people have always felt that maybe something was holding them or touching them or being near them and things like that when I was a child. But I think that so much of that is because one does scare oneself so terribly when one's a child that you just think all sorts of things. But I've often had, in fact, the man who put on my television program in England, I'd met him at a dinner party 2 months before, and I just sort of, you know, talked to him, you know, nothing in particular. And it didn't really register. And he said, oh, well, when you finish your documentary, ring me up at home or whatever, and I'll, you know, I'll look at it and see what's it. So, fine. And I'm sitting there 2 months later in my office where, you know, in this house where Stanley was cutting everything, not here, somewhere else. And I was, you know, watching my rushes on video, and all of a sudden I was completely sort of struck by this feeling that this man, Alan Yentob, was going to ring me and ask me out to dinner, which is utterly fantastic, because I'd met him once and I hadn't seen him in 2 months. And it just kept going, and I kept thinking, Christ, what am I thinking this for? And I was trying to concentrate. And all of a sudden the phone rings, and I suddenly sort of, it's even stronger that I felt this. And then I went to pick up the phone. He said, hello, it's Alan Yentob. And I said, oh, God, Alan Yentob. Oh, you know, and I said, excuse me, you don't understand. It's just that I knew you were going to phone, you see. And, you know, and I got very hysterical. I was terribly embarrassed because I thought, oh, my God, you know, he's going to think I'm a jerk. You know, I pick up the phone and scream. And then he said, oh, would you like to go out to dinner? And then I just completely thought, this is utterly fantastic. In fact, I can prove it to you. It's in my, if you pass it out, look, I'll show you. Okay. Look, this is my diary, you see. Oh, and on January, here it is.
Oh.
See? Almost had a heart attack, was thinking Alan Yentob gonna phone, scream, eek. See? So, but the things like that I find is what happened. But I've never, I wish I could, but I've never seen it.
Have you experienced with the poltergeist? You know what it is?
Oh yeah, when it moves things around, right.
And, you know,
well, I've never actually experienced that at all. I mean, the only thing that I really believe is that I know that people have seen ghosts. I know that friends of mine have said they've seen ghosts. I've known that they've said they've heard things, that they've felt very strange and everything. But I think that a lot of these experiences are suggestive. You start thinking about it. You start getting frightened. And then because, I mean, there's now a lot of discussion on, for instance, schizophrenia and manic depression, where in fact it's chemicals in your brain that induce certain characteristics. And I'm sure that if one's hyped up enough and scared enough, you can produce enough adrenaline and whatever else you may have in your mind to induce you to see things, to be so scared that you actually do see things. But in terms of actually very strange things, where like there's writing on the wall and God knows what else, I've no explanation for it, and I don't dismiss it, because it could be true, but then again it probably isn't true, because there's a lot of weirdos. In fact, on Barry Lyndon, I never met so many weirdos in my entire life. In Ireland, most of the aristocrats that live there, I mean, with all due respect, they're a little sort of crazy. And one place we went to where we shot a scene, it was called Huntington Hall. And they were all spiritualists there. And I had the most bizarre conversations where they say, oh no, we have ghost spirits come here all the time. And we speak to them and talk to them. I mean, obviously people do believe it, but I mean, I suppose I would believe it if I really saw something, but I haven't, so.
Okay, let's start let's start your interview. Vivian, how old are you?
Well, now I'm 20. Yeah.
Are you there? Do you have any brothers and sisters?
Yes, I have 2 sisters. They're both
Younger?
older than I am. No, both older.
Oh,
One's 21 and the other one's 26. And the one that's 21 is going to Royal College of Music, and she's studying opera. And my other sister, Catherine, she's in fact just down the studio. She's working on the Muppets. She does art direction. So that's what she's doing.
And you are doing the editing the film.
Well, I shot the film and then I edited. Well, I finished the editing, obviously, because you've seen it. But I mean, the things that I've got left now are just sort of tidying up things, like making shorts for Paris News, like when you came in. That's what I was
Are you
doing.
going to be the movie director?
I want to. I mean, I really do want to. I think that obviously it's very suspect if children of movie makers want to be movie makers. I mean, it's a bit sort of, oh, God. But, I mean, the thing about, if you look at all people who are very successful, like, you know, pop stars, they all end up wanting to make films. I mean, George Harrison is producing films. Barbra Streisand obviously got into films, and she's now directing one. And, you know, there's something about films which is in no other art form, in that in order to make a film, you have to go through almost every process that is artistic. You know, I mean, obviously, you know, you say artistic and people start puking. Okay, well, it's just a work, but you're trying to do something that ultimately will be considered, you know, artistic. And, you know, there's art direction, there's costume, there's makeup, there's acting, there's writing, there's cinematography, there's, you know, everything you can think of. And, you know, because I wouldn't consider myself like a physics teacher or a, you know, astronomer, you know, it seems the most intelligent thing to do is to get into films. Because, I mean, I've always been interested in photography, and I've always spent practically all my life with my father. You know, unlike, you know, many people who are in the film business, he is, you know, this sounds, you know, corny, but he is probably one of the few people that I know that really does keep his family life total. You know, it's not flying off here and going there and bye kids, see you in 2 years. You know, because every film that he's ever made has always been near home, and it's always been, if we've ever gone anywhere, we've gone with him. And so, as a result, I've always been on films. I mean, I went on to 2001 when I was 6. I mean, that's basically how I got to be in the thing, because I was just, you know, walking around the studio doing nothing. And, you know, I mean, films are fascinating. I mean, that's why people, you know, write millions of books about it, and there's nothing but people talking about films, because it is, you know, incredible. The whole concept of movies is incredible. The fact that people turn out to be enormous stars, you know, gods and goddesses, even though they shouldn't really be. People build them up so much in their minds that they become that. Films are an incredible phenomenon. I mean, I don't think anyone could have believed that it would have turned out the way that it did when they started.
Mr. Kubrick.
Who you're talking to, right? Yeah.
Well, especially the humanity of Mr. Kubrick. How do you see him as a man?
Well, I think what I said previously, the fact that he has never deserted anybody, I mean, not that, I mean, that sounds stupid. What I mean is that as a man, I think obviously it's very difficult. If you live with somebody all the time. And, you know, other people write about him and they say, oh, he's a genius, you know, he's a god, you know, and they, whatever. You don't really see that, you know. I mean, you can understand, but how could one ever live a real life by walking around going, my father, he's a god. Oh, you know, when I see him, Dad, I'll bring you eggs and tea in the morning every single day. You know, it's not like that. You know, he's my dad. I mean, I don't think people realize how incredibly normal it all is. I mean, I was showing you all the, you know, junk that we've got from films. You know, people think that films are sort of, you know, incredibly mechanized and organized and everything. And I don't think people realize how compromising films are. You know, the fact that, oh my God, we forgot to shoot that today. Well, you know, that's it.
What is his personality?
His personality, I think you could probably judge well for yourself on the telephone, that he's very uncomfortable in a situation where he has to talk about, you know, his films. I mean, I don't blame him. I mean, it's very difficult because you don't, I mean, one never wants to appear to be foolish. And, you know, so, but certainly I think that, excuse my dogs, they're just all freaking out back there. No, I mean, I don't really, the problem about asking a question like that is that whatever I say will sound sort of silly. But basically, in terms of his character, he's incredibly hardworking. I don't think, and, you know, he works constantly. You know, maybe that's not good for him, but he feels that that's necessary. He would feel worse on holiday, sitting there doing nothing, than if he was actually, you know, reading or, you know, playing chess or whatever he, you know, finds that entertains him. But certainly, I think out of all the people that I've ever met in the film business, he certainly is the most, I mean, I've said hardworking, but he's certainly the most careful as well. You know, I mean, people say, you know, he spends so much time making films. Well, then look at all the films that take a year to make, and they're crap.
So
you know.
How many, you know, the holidays does he have in a year or in a month?
He doesn't have any holidays. I don't think I haven't been on a holiday in my entire life either. I mean, holidays are really, I mean, I think if you analyze it, people go on holidays because they hate work. And they go, oh, God, another 2 weeks and I'll be on holiday. Oh, heaven, you know. And if you enjoy what you're doing, it's sort of, it's worse if you go on holiday, because then you're not doing what you'd like to be doing. Obviously, one doesn't sit there, you know, 8:30 in the morning, jump up, go to your desk, work till 11. I mean, it's not like that. But, you know, it's just a calm, normal, consistent progression of work.
Well, how is he as a father?
Well, I said, I mean, he's terrific. I don't think, you know, I keep having to qualify these things I'm saying because, you know, they would be considered highly suspect if I sit here going, oh, my dad, you know. But I do feel that for him. I feel tremendous respect. I feel very grateful at the fact that unlike many parents, they actually, you know, have a lot of faith in their children. I mean, my father has always tried to make all of us and help all of us in whatever we wanted to do. My sister wanted to be an opera singer, so, you know, all our lives we'd have piano lessons, we've had music lessons. Anya used to do operas with Jonathan Miller, the youth, do you know Jonathan Miller? She used to do children's operas in the Roundhouse in London, you know, and, you know, he's always tried. I mean, for instance, when I started this film, I didn't like school. I always found school a very different environment to really exist. You know, it was something that I was never comfortable in. So consequently, I left school itself when I was 15. And then I had to get some examinations. So I then went to college, and I left college when I was 16. Spent the summer wondering what on earth I was going to do. Started, I had a lot of friends who were musicians. That's also, you see, my mother's parents were all opera singers. And, you know, it's a very musical side of the family. So, of course, that's always been an honor. My mother was a ballet dancer and the sort of German equivalent to Doris Day in the 50s. I mean, she used to, in Germany, she was the sort of little starlet. And in fact, that's how my father saw her. He saw her on TV and just sort of completely fell over himself, yeah, because he thought she was so beautiful. And then she, quite coincidentally, she came for the audition of the part for Paths of Glory. And of course, you know, he took his chance. And, but going back to him, he also, when I started this film, he said, okay, well, work in the art department, that's fun. And I was working in the art department when I was 16 on this film. And, I was making models and doing research and making tea and, and I thought, oh God, I can't bear this any longer. I'd like to do what I was doing when I was in school, which was singing and writing songs and being in a band. Now, that probably sounds a bit silly, but anyway. And so he said to me the night I was going to break the news to him that I wasn't going to be in the art department anymore, he said, Viv, your mother and I, we feel that it's about time you made a film. Because I'd always been very interested in films, and I had made many films, in school by myself and things like that. And of course, I wasn't going to miss this chance. So I said, I'd absolutely, God, I'd be totally crazed if I thought, okay, so. And then I just started, and I literally just walked in and just started shooting, just started filming. Dougie, all the crew that work on my father's film have worked on it since the beginning of time. I can't remember when they came on, but all the major people, the focus pullers, the continuity lady, everybody, they all end up being the same people every film. And so they all helped me, get the equipment, learn about it. And then it really was, he just said to me, the only way you're ever going to learn how to do this is to just do it. And you do it whatever way you think you are able to do it. And he would look at my rushes with me and he'd say, you shouldn't pan so quickly, you're not keeping the focus right. And, that's really all that I did. And for a year I was filming everybody. And I think it was then that I was 17, right? And then I finished it when I was 18. And then it took me about a year to go through the material. Because the other thing is I transferred all the sound. Obviously it was on 1/8 of an inch SN tape, and I transferred it all onto this. And I had to do it myself, because obviously people said things that you wouldn't ever want anyone to hear, And so I transferred the whole thing myself, which took me about 2 months, because it's like, just millions of feet. And then it was all transferred onto video. And I watched it on video for about 6 months, just going through it, making millions of notes. I mean, these aren't actually the books, but they're somewhere back there. And it takes a long time because, you find things interesting, and then you look at it and you go, I wonder if anyone else would find it interesting, whether they'd find it funny. And it's also very difficult because you're trying to at least give character, portray everybody that's important, Stanley, Jack, and Shelley, and Danny, without doing it in a way that appears to be, all these films that they make about films have this very synthetic feel about it. They're all sort of cutty and, like I was saying, an army of technicians comes in and here's Mr. Kubrick, hi, and they're all very sort of, synthetic. It's not real. And so the thing that I hope that this documentary would do is that it does show the reality. It shows that Shelley was jealous of Jack, and that Jack did piss around a lot, and that Danny is very funny, and that my father works hard, and that all these things, and to try and represent it in half an hour. I mean, so.
Yeah, that's the point where I noticed in your film.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very, very nice. Very good. As a documentary film. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Passes very quickly. But,
Yes, here we are. Get the axe out there, look.
カラーバー 1KC ただいま収録中、10月24日ホテルインバーネスコートホテル4階です。